Hello, my name is Sam Green, and this is my TED Talk presentation. So, the pandemic, 2021, COVID. We mention these when we mention these words, many things come to mind, like scared, sick, change. What do you think about when I mention the word COVID? So, think about it for a second and see what comes to mind. So, the pandemic has shifted the way people see and do a lot of things. For me, it's been very interesting to see how the workforce has shifted from a virus that took over the entire world. When we look back post-pandemic and think about the workforce, we imagine, buildings, people in suit and ties, going into the office every day, working a steady 9 to 5 jobs and groups, gatherings, and all that sorts of things. So the pandemic has shifted the typical view because people were told to stay at home, work remote, and quarantine as much as possible when they were sick. After almost 1.5 years of shifting the workforce to completely remote, many businesses and companies were ready for their employees to come back into the office once the virus had settled down. This has caused quite a few problems for employees and companies because the shift to remote working had gone so successfully and so well, and was ultimately helping his employees create more productivity, a better work-life balance, and better overall health. Now, for an example, let's imagine my sister, for instance. She is 30 years old and has a 1-year-old baby. While she's working full-time, doing her everyday mom and wife duties. Prior to the shift to remote working due to COVID, she was spending at least 2 hours every day back and forth from her house, commuting to work and coming home. Now, within seeing that, I am no chef, but I think in that 2 hours, she could easily have dinner made and ready, cooked, cleaned, and everything, then back to priorities of taking care of her baby. Her work went strictly remote when the pandemic hit. Now, at first, this had caused quite a bit of adjustment, but almost 2 years later, she had a great system figured out to balance all the necessitary items that she had been doing during the day. Jumping forward 2 years later, the office wanted her to come back in full time. At this point, all the daycares had already been completely filled up with all the regular kids that had been there before the pandemic. And even considering the fact is that she would still be giving a 1-year-old there, and that is very difficult. You can't really send a 1-year-old full time. But when she was working remote, she was able to have her kid with her and adjust her hours of working throughout the day to where she could meet the demands of her job and the demands of her baby. That whenever that baby needs her, she is there. So now I ask, what is she supposed to do? Lose her job because she can't come back? Excuse me, because she can't come back to the office full time? Bring her baby with her to the office? Why does the company think that she needs to come back to the office whenever she is doing her job perfectly well at home and not having any issues? These are a lot of questions that I have seen through my research on this topic that have come up. Should the workforce have a permanent shift to empower and benefit employees? I ask myself, why do employees get pushed to the side? Why is the company always put first? Because at the end of the day, isn't it the employees of the company that are helping make that company so successful to where it is to that day? Now we're going to go into some statistics of how the pandemic has shifted working in the office and remote working, and how employees now view remote working. In 2022, just after a few years after the pandemic hit, it was reported that 80 million workers at some point were able to work from home. Over 80% of the workers reported that being able to have a flexible job has definitely helped create a better work-life balance. And over half of the workers reported that they were able to be more productive at home working remotely than being at the office. On the other hand, 65% of employers would rather see workers come back to the office. Um, in, in 2022, there has been a big change in the labor market. More than 80 million people in America work part-time during the work week. And of that 80 million, 29.3, as you can see here, million people reported that they work full-time 5 days a week throughout the entire work week from home. In the spring of 2022, it shows that roughly 92 million Americans were offered to work from home at least 1 day a week, if not more, while 35% were offered full-time positions. This study does cover both blue and white collar jobs. It was found that 87%, my bad, of people utilized working at home whenever they were given the chance by their boss or upper management or someone in the company. And that really shows to me how much people really do enjoy the opportunity of being able to work at home and work in that environment. Let's go to the next slide. With all the benefits of working from home, one of the biggest ones, as you can see here, is nearly 70% of employees have reported that mental health has improved from working from home. For many people, this cut out long commutes to work. I know personally for me, this was a huge increase because I have about a 45-minute commute each way, or one way, I should say. So about an hour and a half of the day I spent driving. But also at the same time, I realized this as well, as being able to work from home has definitely been able to help me save money, just because of fuel and buying gas and even the maintenance on the cars, getting oil changes or tires or anything like that. With not having that commute, there's an expense that's being saved there because you're not driving nearly as much. So why are Americans leaning towards more remote working? The pandemic has shifted us to go from office work to remote work. Some people didn't realize how much they would enjoy remote working. Now they feel more productive, motivated, less stress, which is a very, very big thing. Companies have seen low retention and increased employee morale from working at home. Managers can help employees work through this shift of getting back into the office by allowing their teams that they've put forth in their companies to continue to work remotely. Now, some companies may not allow their employees to work remote full time, as if we are still knee deep in the pandemic, but some have shifted to a hybrid schedule that is allowing employees to continue to work remotely while also having some in-office time. People soon figured out after working remotely for 2 years that they enjoy being home because it helps their work-life balance. I believe that companies should continue to encourage this because of benefits that will continue to come from it. Main ones, especially for most companies, more revenue because of more good productivities. Managers can respond to the following factors that are critical for company success. Like I was just saying, to remote working, cost savings. Managers will see a response in cost savings from remote working by lowering the cost of in-office supplies, building rentals, electricity, water, any of those things. Motivation, keeping and finding ways to encourage your employees to be motivated, such as weekly check-ins, providing incentives, giving more remote working options if your company isn't already on a fully remote schedule. And finally, a big one is productivity. They can set expectations for your employees and have them send in weekly reports of productivity levels on what they have completed. And then that's just a good way of, the managers can always stay on task. They know exactly what's getting done throughout the week. And if there is any flaws, they do have a report weekly that they can look back at and get with that employee if he's having difficulties and see exactly where he's having the difficulties at, communicate effectively, and come to a solution on figuring out why that is going on. Next slide here. Managers also who keep an eye out for these three factors while also empowering their employees to have a better work-life balance will see the reward of having trustworthy, productive, happy employees. As a manager, take charge of your employees and their work duties by setting expectations and tasks and completion lists. Once this is set up, make sure that you are checking in with each employee on their work-life balance / remote working schedule. Be flexible, be a leader, be supportive as well. Doing this will give you the most empowering and productive team as you can imagine. So that is the conclusion of my slides. As you can see here, here's what I was just talking about at the very end. And here are the sources where I did find all of my information on this topic. That is the complete end of my TED Talk presentation, and thank you.